Well, we've been waiting all day for Sunday night. The Falcons are in Washington taking on the Commanders at Northwest Field. Huge playoff implications for both of these teams tonight. If Washington wins, they're in the playoffs. If the Falcons win, they stay alive in the NFC South race because of the Tampa Bay win over Carolina today. Thank you guys for joining us for the Falcons pregame show presented by Ticketmaster. Taylor Vismor, Will McFadden, a different face for you guys today. Rackley could not be with us. He's actually calling the game for Westwood One on Sunday Night Football. So super excited for him and the opportunity. Wish him all the best of luck. But Will, thank you for being here. It's going to be an exciting matchup today.
Of course it is. You say you've been waiting all day for Sunday night. I've been waiting all week for Sunday night.
Yeah.
This is going to be an incredible game between two of the quarterbacks that I think everybody was most excited to see coming into the season. And there's a lot of familiarity between these two teams. Even though they haven't met this season, there's matchups and storylines on both sides.
Yeah, huge game for both of these teams. And like I said earlier, Washington, if they win, they're in. The Falcons win today, they're going to stay alive. And so safe to say we're probably going to see the best football from both of these teams tonight on Sunday Night Football. But let's talk about the playoff picture for the Falcons specifically, because a lot of you were probably watching the 1 p.m. slot with Tampa Bay taking on the Carolina Panthers down in Tampa. And of course, the Buccaneers won that game. So now with that win, what's at stake now? What's the playoff picture look like for the Falcons?
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple, right? You've got to keep pace. Their goal was to outrun the South when the season started. And this is going to be a race all the way to the finish line. Tampa Bay has been really, really good down the stretch. I know they had their hiccup last week against the Dallas Cowboys, but they're playing excellent football, and the Falcons have to match that. And they wanted to be in the playoffs. Guess what? They're in the playoffs right now. You have to win this game to stay on top of the NFC South. Yeah, could you still make it happen if you don't? Of course, but for all intents and purposes, handle your business tonight, and things are looking very pretty for the Falcons.
That's right. And if the Falcons don't win tonight, then they will, of course, need to hope, and the destiny will be out of their hands, which is not what any team wants in the NFL. And if the Falcons are to lose to the Commanders tonight, they're going to have to hope that Tampa loses to the Saints, which I don't know that that's very feasible to kind of hope and wish for. So unable to, write your own destiny and keep your hand on the wheel that you're driving, you have to win in Washington tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the reason why everybody was so excited when the outcome last Sunday night was what it was, and Dallas knocked off Tampa. It's because it gave you back the right to control your own destiny, and that means winning tonight, right? So I don't expect Tampa, after the way that they played today against Carolina, to have a struggle against New Orleans. I think they'll keep rolling, so you, again, have to kind of handle your own business tonight and keep your foot on the gas pedal. Yeah,
you bring up last week for the Bucs, but let's bring up last week for the Falcons, because huge day for Michael Penix. He got his first NFL start against the New York Giants. Of course, the Falcons came out on top against the Giants, putting them back on top of the NFC South. Let me ask you this in just a broad sense. What did you see from Michael Penix Jr. in his first start in the NFL?
I thought he was really kind of consistently great. Yeah. And I know that he didn't have a touchdown pass in the game. He did have that one interception that I think anybody watching the game wouldn't have actually credited to Michael Penix. But I think we saw really three key differences with Michael Penix Jr. under center. The first was apparent on the very first snap of the game. It was a play-action rollout. He fires a dart to Ray McCloud. Yeah, he didn't reel it in, but you trust him in future situations to do that. But Michael Penix was used on bootlegs 24% of his dropbacks against the Giants. The Falcons were the league low by a large margin with Kirk Cousins under center in rollouts and bootlegs. So that right there is already a big difference. The second thing I noticed, Michael Penix liked to throw the ball down the field. Anybody that watched him at the University of Washington is not going to be surprised by that fact. But he averaged, 10 air yards on 44% of his attempts in the first half. And I specify the first half because once the game got out of the balance there in the second half, they became a little bit less aggressive. But that plays into your play-action passing game, right? Because you draw everybody in, and then you want to throw it over top. The third and final thing is pretty obvious. It's his mobility. It's his mobility both outside and inside of the pocket. He was pressured 14 times. He wasn't sacked once. He's a big, strong, sturdy dude who can move around in the pocket, and he's going to need that tonight against a very good Washington front.
That's right. Penix went 18 for 27, 202 yards. Like you said, no touchdowns and just one interception on the day. And like you said, probably would not credit that to Michael in the throw that he made. But let me ask you this, because this is a huge stage for Michael Penix, right? It's Sunday night football. It's a huge stage for anybody. It's Sunday night football. You're getting your second start in the NFL. How important was it to start Michael 1 week before this enormous game for the Falcons?
That's a great question, because it's something that, honestly, I was kind of going back and forth in my own head about what would you rather do? Would you rather have it be a surprise for Washington, right? In this kind of must-win, gotta-have-it game, is that when you throw him out there when there's no tape whatsoever on Michael Penix Jr.? But honestly, I think getting his first start underneath him at home against a team that on paper you really liked and you should be able to beat and handle. And so I still don't think that Washington has all the film in the world on Michael Penix.
Right.
So I think the surprise factor is still going to work in Atlanta's favor to get him out there, to get him comfortable, and he looked comfortable.
Yeah, that's one thing I will say for Michael Penix. I don't know that he's ever really shaken up. He's always talking about how calm he is in every scenario that he ever walks into, whether it's football or just life in general. It never, wavers, just very straight and narrow, always on that straight and narrow line for him. But you talk about the film and maybe the lack of film that Washington will have, because not just because of, it's just one game, but also because of the run game that we saw last week from the against the New York Giants. Let me ask you this. How helpful was Bijan Robinson in helping Michael Penix perform really well last week?
A running back is a rookie quarterback's best friend.
Right.
And he finished just shy of 100 rushing yards, but yards from scrimmage, he surpassed that total. And he has just been so dynamic in extending plays, in allowing, honestly, kind of the quarterback to have more time in the pocket. Like, the evolution of Bijan Robinson as a pass protector, I think, has been as important as his evolution in the run game, with everything slowing down for him. So he's become a true three-phase running back. You mentioned the 94 yards. He became the second fastest Falcon to reach 3,000 scrimmage yards in 32 games. He's one shy of William Andrews, who, in my opinion, is maybe the most talented Falcons running back to ever play. It's incredible what Bijan has been doing. They're going to need it again tonight, but there's no doubt in my mind that having him back there should give Michael Penix Jr. a lot of confidence.
Yeah, we're going to touch on the keys to the game for this game in particular against the Washington Commanders a little bit later in the show, but I just wanted to make a quick callback because Rackley would want me to do this because he's not here tonight. But I want to say this. We have 4 keys every game, Will. So he normally, Rackley will do 3. I'll normally just do my preference. And let me just say, all 4 of the keys hit last week. His first one was focus on the run game. 127 rushing yards between 4 rushers, 2 rushing touchdowns. He wanted 3-phase football. 2 out of 3 of those there were 3 field goal attempts. 2 of them were made, and they were 4 for 4 on extra points. But that's with a brand new kicker to this team. Then defensive pressure. The defense would finish with 6 QB hits, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 3 interceptions. That's so much pressure on that quarterback and on that offensive front for the Giants. And then my preference, which was limiting offensive penalties. The Falcons offense only had 3 penalties all game, 2 of which came from the offensive line, Dahlman and Bergeron, both of which happened in the fourth quarter, one of which was actually declined in the fourth quarter. So listen, I know that we're not the smartest people in the world, right? We're not on ESPN. We're not the best analysts ever, but we know a thing or two about a thing or two. So let's go ahead and talk about what we know about this Washington Commanders team, because like you said, they're going to need to run this ball a little bit more, like we saw last week out of Bijan Robinson against this Washington Commanders team.
Oh, they definitely will. I mean, one of the keys, I think, is to keep the ball out of Jaden Daniels' hands and this dynamic Washington offense. So if you're able to kind of control time of possession, stay ahead of the chains, and give Michael Penix some favorable looks, that is really, I think, where it starts for Atlanta. And one of my favorite things about Bijan Robinson this season is his ability to force missed tackles. He has 99 missed tackles forced this year. That's the most in the NFL. If he is able to get out in space against these tacklers, more often than not, he's going to get you some extra yards, and that is going to do exactly what I just said, keep you ahead of the sticks, keep Michael Penix in some favorable situations, and keep the entire offense open for Atlanta.
Yeah, let's talk about these quarterbacks really fast, because this is the first primetime matchup where two rookie quarterbacks that were taken in the first round will square off in primetime in NFL history. This is a huge moment, not just for the Commanders, not for the Falcons, not for Michael Penix and Jaden Daniels, but this is a big moment for the NFL. When you look at these two quarterbacks, just based on week 16 alone, what do you see when you look at these two guys who are kind of have a very similar, if you will, playing style?
They do have a similar playing style. That's a great point. I do think that, we haven't seen Michael Penix yet have that dynamic type of athleticism in the open field, right? You have to keep in mind, Jaden Daniels is second only to Lamar Jackson in rushing yards for NFL quarterbacks. So we're talking about a different type of athlete here. But that's not to say that Michael Penix Jr. can't do that. It's just that I think he has grown and developed, and that partially has to do with some injuries that he's sustained in college. He's become a really good pocket passer who likes to probe all parts of the field. So this is a little bit of kind of like the ice of Michael Penix Jr. and the fire of Jaden Daniels. When he can get outside of the pocket and create some dynamic plays, and just the cool, calm, procedural nature of number 9 for the Atlanta Falcons, it's going to be such a fun, stylistic matchup to watch. And really, honestly, seeing how these two defenses play against either of the rookie quarterbacks is something I just cannot wait to see.
Yeah, I love with this game in particular the storylines about these two quarterbacks, because they have such similar paths to the NFL. Of course, they started Michael from Florida and Jaden in California. They then went to their first universities, of course, Arizona State and Indiana. They then transferred to a different Power 5 schools where they found a ton of success in LSU and Washington. They met in New York for the Heisman Trophy, where Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. Michael Penix came in second, and then they were both drafted in the top, the first round, my goodness, in the NFL draft this year. So very similar paths to the NFL, the transfer portal, then the Heisman Trophy, finding success in your second school. When you look at these quarterbacks, and I think this is really a bigger conversation that we're going to start having more and more as these new college, these collegiate athletes come into the league.
Yeah.
What does that adversity do for a quarterback that transferred, found more success, and then flourished at their second university that they went to?
Yeah, it's going to be something that is as important, I think, as ever. And there's going to be kind of, I think, two minds of it, right? A lot of people could say the transfer portal is allowing students and athletes who aren't in great situations to have kind of an easy off-ramp. But the other kind of flip side of that is if a quarterback in this situation, like Michael Penix, has some injury history, it allows him a second opportunity. And I spoke to Kalen DeBoer this season, who was Michael's coach at the University of Washington, and he just praised his ability to overcome adversity, to play in some of the biggest games in college football over the last couple of seasons and really shine. And it's allowed his kind of maturity, his leadership, that quality to just kind of totally shine through to his teammates. I think it's part of the reason he's been able to step into this role in kind of a tricky situation, and that the team has confidence in him to do so. So again, this is going to be a crazy atmosphere up there at Northwest Stadium. But if there's anybody that I believe could do it as a rookie quarterback, it's Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, I love that. And speaking of the rookie quarterbacks, back to Jaden Daniels, I think that he has fit into that mold, that offense so well. And we talked about it a little bit with Cliff Kingsbury and what he does offensive scheme-wise. What have you seen from Jaden Daniels and maybe even the guys that he's throwing the ball to this season?
Yeah, he likes to go deep too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, both of these quarterbacks are going to probe the defense. They're going to look for that big play. Terry McLaurin has been his kind of go-to guy in almost a literal sense, because a lot of those yardage have come on go routes this season. But really, again, to me, it circles back to the athleticism that Jaden Daniels presents at the quarterback position. And that is why Atlanta has run the most zone coverage of any defense in the NFL this season. Now, a lot of times that is to keep everything underneath, rally and make the tackle. But in this specific matchup, it's going to allow 11 sets of eyes to be on the quarterback at all times.
Yeah.
And that's going to be important. But it's also going to be important to really be disciplined, because you have to decide that fine line between, is he about to take off and run, or is he buying some time to make a pass? Because if you jump a little bit too early and you go take off to tackle him and you leave your assignment, Jaden Daniels is very good, and he is able to make that big play right behind you. So it's going to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game, I think, with Atlanta's zone defense, but that is where you trust guys like Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons at the safety position. They're incredible. I think they're going to be really big in tonight's matchup.
Yeah, you bring up the zone defense and obviously you bring up those safeties, but I kind of want to talk about A.J. Terrell and Mike Hughes and the corners, D. Alford, if they're going to throw in a nickel there. What do you expect to see from them when they're going up against a Terry McLaurin tonight?
Yeah, I mean, so A.J. Terrell has been just incredible this season. I don't think he's been getting enough credit, and it's honestly because he's not getting thrown to. If you look at the cornerbacks with at least 300 coverage snaps so far this season, he's third in target rate. Quarterbacks are not throwing his way. Number 1 on that list is Patrick Surtain. Number 2 on that list is Jalen Johnson. Those are widely regarded as 2 of the best young cornerbacks, and A.J. Terrell is in that conversation right there with him. So when it comes to the matchup between he and Terry McLaurin, Jimmy Lake has said at times this year, when there is a true number 1 on the other side, think A.J. Brown, think CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Terrell is going to follow him. That's something that's a little bit different than what he's done throughout his career, but it also, again, speaks to the confidence that this coaching staff has in their number 1 cornerback to be able to match Terry McLaurin on any route they're going to throw at him and kind of to lock him down. And that's where it gets into, all right, who is maybe Jaden Daniels looking to otherwise? And there aren't some other great secondary and tertiary options for this Washington defense. So if you're looking at a path to victory for Atlanta, A.J. Terrell is huge in that path because if he's able to handle and win his matchup against one of the best receivers in the NFL once again, the math becomes a little bit simpler for Atlanta.
Yeah, you bring up A.J. Terrell, the corner, and then how he's just not being targeted as much. And someone that was not targeted 2 weeks ago when they played the Saints was Marshon Lattimore. He will be inactive today. He was downgraded to out on Friday after their practice. So what does having Marshon Lattimore, and there's a couple other guys on their inactives list, Jordan McGee and Tyler Owens as well, they will not be active tonight against the Falcons. When you see these inactives for this Commanders defense, what are your first thoughts, and how does this almost in a way help the Falcons find their margin of victory a little bit bigger? Yeah,
obviously Marshon Lattimore is a cornerback who has a lot of familiarity with the Atlanta Falcons from his time in New Orleans. But if he's not in there, there's still really capable players in that secondary for Washington. I would start with Mike Sainristil, who was somebody coming out in the draft that I loved. He is a former wide receiver who was transferred over to the defensive side of the ball, something that Dan Quinn really likes. If you kind of look at his history, even here in Atlanta, Jalen Hawkins, former safety, was once a wide receiver. C.J. Goodwin, former wide receiver, transferred over to cornerback upon entering the NFL. So they have ball skills. They are going to be able to kind of contest and run these routes almost for Atlanta's wide receivers. But again, with Marshon Lattimore out, the depth at corner isn't going to be a strength for Washington. And so that's where you start looking at somebody like Drake London combined with Darnell Mooney. You get Bijan Robinson out there also eating up some space, Kyle Pitts, Ray McLeod. There's a lot of options for Michael Penix to go to. And if you can get the run game going early, start using some of these play actions, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to win some 50-50 balls and create space for your wide receivers to run away from kind of a little bit of a depleted Washington secondary.
All right, I want to give you a softball here because you've been chomping at the bit to talk about this guy all week long, I feel like. Frankie Louvu, who is this guy? Why is he so dangerous? How do you contain him and his production tonight?
Oh, man, he is kind of like the heart and soul, I feel, of this Washington Commanders defense. Like, for somebody who has seen Deion Jones be in the middle of that Atlanta defense for a long time with Dan Quinn, you can start to picture what Frankie Louvu's role is for Washington. He is somebody who can rush the passer. He's second on the team with 8 sacks this season, but he is going to line up all over the place. He had an incredible play in their win last week against Philadelphia, where they're essentially running a slant route and a flat combination, a dragon lion. And he fakes like he's going to go cover the flat, and then as soon as the quarterback, I can't remember if it was Jalen Hurts at this point or Kenny Pickett, but as soon as he starts to throw that slant right behind it, he breaks off and he covers the slant and he gets a pick. That's the type of player that Frankie Louvu is. He's smart, he is dynamic, he is rangy, and he loves to kind of have a nose for the football and be wherever the action is. So when you're looking at the defense for Washington, Yes, I know they've got Dante Fowler. Yes, I know they've got Bobby Wagner. Those are household names and for very good reason. But Frankie Louvu is a player that has just jumped off the screen to me, and I cannot wait to watch him in this game, and it's not going to be hard to find him.
Right.
He is going to be all over the place. So him and Bijan Robinson in this offensive line for Atlanta, who's not getting enough credit this season, by the way, it's going to be such a great matchup.
I was just about to ask you that. Bobby Wagner and Dante Fowler Jr., of course, like you just said, they're household names. But when you look at what the Falcons had to go against last week with the New York Giants, and now you have these guys on the defensive front who are going to be coming after your quarterback when he wasn't even sacked one time last week, what is this pressure going to be like for this offensive line that we saw a really clean game out of last week?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is something where I feel a little bit better about them in this matchup after seeing what they did against the New York Giants. I kind of thought that Brian Burns against Caleb McGarry was going to be a little bit of a mismatch. No slight to Caleb McGarry on that one. He and I actually chatted about it on Friday in the locker room. I thought he did a great job. So this is going to be a group, a front four for Washington that loves to go forward. They love to attack. They're going to have Jonathan Allen back in the mix. He is probably going to be on a little bit of a snap count, but still, him, Deron Payne, Jerzon Newton, their rookie, who a lot of Falcons fans, I think, thought that Atlanta may have been in the mix for there in the second round. There's a bunch of dudes. You know, when I talk about a little bit of the depth concerns and maybe wide receiver in the secondary for Washington, they do not have that on their fronts. So Atlanta, they're going to have their work cut out for them, but they're also up to this challenge. They've only given up 29 sacks all season long. That's the 9th fewest in the NFL. Chris Lindstrom, once again, playing at an all-pro level. Jake Matthews, he's getting up there in age, but he's not showing it on the field. And Matthew Bergeron in his second season has fit right in. Drew Dahlman is consistent as always. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough challenge, but it is one that I definitely think Atlanta's offensive line is up for. You
just said it, tough challenge tonight. They have their work cut out for them. This is going to be a game that goes all 4 quarters down probably to the 2-minute drill in the 4th quarter tonight. So let's get to the keys to the game presented by Wells Fargo. You got 3 from me. What is your first key to the game?
Yeah, it's winning on third down. This is going to be, I talked about kind of maintaining possession, winning that time of possession, and staying ahead of the chains. A big part of that is because Washington is very good on third down on both sides of the ball, really. When you look at Washington's offense, of course, Jaden Daniels plays a big role in that. But when you've got a running back like Brian Robinson, who is powerful, can run downhill, that's going to be a big factor as well. Zach Ertz, their tight end, great possession receiver. He is a little bit of a security blanket for a rookie quarterback. So Washington is 6th in the NFL in third down conversion rate. They're also 2nd on 4th down. So if they get a feeling like they can go for it again on 4th down, they're going to. So I think controlling third down in that situation is going to be really big for Atlanta in this one.
Yeah, you bring up their offensive third down conversion, even their 4th down conversion. For their defense, they're 16th in the NFL on third down conversions, 38.9% success rate for the opponent. So could be seeing some conversions today for the Atlanta Falcons on the offensive side of the ball. Let's go ahead and get to your second key of the game tonight.
Yeah, I think this one's pretty simple. Contain Jaden Daniels. You cannot let him kind of take over this game with his legs because, again, if you can control Terry McLaurin, if you can protect Michael Penix Jr. and get this run game going, all of a sudden it starts to flip in Atlanta's favor, some of these matchups. But honestly, Jaden Daniels is kind of the ultimate game wrecker, and you can't let him wreck this game. And getting him outside of the pocket, letting him use his legs, let him get into the flow of this game and let the crowd kind of get behind him and feed off their energy, that's going to be huge. So limit him early. Don't let him have a big, long run and kind of try to keep tabs on him while also maybe containing some of those big plays on the back end.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this guy is going to be the offensive rookie of the year at the end of the season. So we'll see what they end up voting for in that poll. But like you said, have to contain Daniels. He is so dangerous with his feet, with his arm. Doesn't matter. He'll beat you either way. What is your third and final cue of the game tonight?
Yeah, you got to get the run game going if you're Atlanta, right? And that is allow Bijan Robinson to just keep on cooking. This is a matchup that on paper really favors Atlanta. Washington has not been good at defending outside zone plays, and Atlanta has been feasting on outside zone all season long. They run it at the 2nd highest rate in the NFL, and Bijan Robinson has run it at the highest rate in the NFL among all running backs. and he's got 885 yards on outside zone runs, which is third most in the NFL, 9 touchdowns, second most. So get Bijan outside of the tackle box early, get Caleb McGarry, get Chris Lindstrom on the move out in front of him, and then, let him run over my guy, Frankie Louvu. Let him be on his back for most of this game, and I think that is going to be huge for Atlanta in this one.
I fully agree with you. You said a perfect word in that is get him involved early in this game, because like you saw last week when they took on the Eagles, they had 211 rushing yards last week, the Eagles did, against the Commanders, and they allowed Saquon Barkley to have 150 yards, 2 touchdowns on 29 carries. But here's the kicker. That was all mostly in the first quarter. Barkley had 109 of his 150 yards came in the first quarter. So if you can get those rush yards early and quickly and get them down, get the rushing yards up very quickly, I think that's going to be a huge key to success in this game, which leads to my preference today, because if you can get Bijan Robinson started early and you can get him going quickly, and then in the second, third, and fourth quarter they start to shut him down, that gives you a great option. It gives you Michael Penix. I need to see a confident Michael Penix this week. I'm not saying that he's not confident. I think that this guy is one of the most confident guys in this building, in this organization. He just oozes confidence, in my opinion. And I think the thing with Michael Penix is this. You give him an opportunity, he's going to take it, but he's going to do what you ask him to do. I don't think last week against the New York Giants you saw anything too huge, too flashy. Yeah, you saw a couple 10-plus yard receptions to Darnell Mooney last week, but nothing that made you think this guy is awesome, like hanging in the Louvre kind of situation, right? But I think that's what we're going to need to see from Penix tonight. I need to see a confident Penix who's going to go out there, make big-time throws on big-time TV. Listen, I love Sunday Night Football. I love Monday Night Football because here's why. I get to sit in my bed and watch NFL Countdown. And they talk about and I love these pregame shows. I mean, I literally do a pregame show every single week. And what I love is that they do this whole, setup of the Sunday Night Football matchup, which they had a whole thing today. And I just want to say, they all doubted the Atlanta Falcons, and they all are doubting Michael Penix and his ability. Teddy Bruschi, he said, listen, Penix, don't try to keep up with Daniels. You're not that guy. Don't try to be that guy. I am imploring you, Michael Penix, be that guy. Don't go out there and just try to chase Daniels. Go out there and try to beat Daniels. Be confident today. Play at the highest that you can play in this game when it matters the most.
Yeah, go earn that respect, right? If you want to be mentioned in these conversations, go out there and prove it tonight. And you mentioned Saquon Barkley and kind of his dominance early on in that game against Washington. What changed? Jalen Hurts went out, and the balance shifted. And so that is where, to your point, Michael Penix is going to have to be a factor in this game. It can't just only be on Bijan and only on the offensive line, because Washington is good enough to take away the best running backs in the league. They did it last week. And I hate to say it, but they could do it against Bijan if the passing game is not going to be working. So it's going to have to be a little bit of a two-headed monster for Atlanta's offense, and that's what, again, it's just going to make it so much fun, because I have the confidence that Michael Penix Jr. is going to be able to do that tonight on the road in a very big atmosphere. I'm
very excited for this matchup. So we're going to let you guys go ahead and turn your TV to NBC for Sunday Night Football. We've been waiting all night. What do you think Carrie's going to say? Like Commanders and the Falcons and like a classic showdown, a monster showdown?
What about a showdown for the future?
That's a little long. We'll let you guys go. Let us know what she ends up saying, because I think we're going to miss it on our way back home to watch the game ourselves. Enjoy the game on Sunday Night Football, and we'll see you next week in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.